Hello, welcome back. Oh my God, I'm back again. It's me, Paul Mount from Paul's World of Stuff. Off to the cinemas Tuesday afternoon, going to see The Substance, the extremely controversial, well, I don't know if it's controversial, but it sounds like it's quite out there, new body horror film starring Demi Moore. So I'm looking forward to this one. I will talk to you about it tomorrow because I'm going out directly after the film. And I shall record my thoughts tomorrow for you to enjoy, well, after this. You know, sometimes a film comes along, usually a horror film, that completely polarizes its audience. Some people love it, they think it's a work of art, they think it says so much about the human condition, and they're struck by the imagery and the visuals and the music, and it all builds to this crescendo of something that's so contemporary and so about us and the way we live now and what it means to be human. And others think it's a load of old toot. I actually fall somewhere in the middle, leaning towards the toot level, the range, in relation to The Substance, a new body horror thriller, which is in cinemas now, came out last week, and as you know, went to see it yesterday. It's written and directed by Coralie Farjat. She previously created a film called Revenge, which I haven't seen yet, which is supposed to be quite graphic and quite out there. And I think much the same can be said of The Substance. It stars Demi Moore, and I have to say, I can probably count on the fingers of one, finger, the number of films I've seen Demi Moore in, to be honest. She's not an actress whose career I've particularly followed. Also stars Margaret Walley and Randy Craig. They're the only three significant cast members in this film. I saw the trailer a couple of weeks ago, thought this looks a bit weird, looks a bit strange, and it is both of those things and quite a bit more. Demi Moore plays Elizabeth Sparkle. The film starts with quite an interesting shot of a Hollywood Walk of Fame star being made and put into place somewhere on Hollywood Boulevard for Elizabeth Sparkle, who, as the film begins, is a former Oscar winner whose career has dwindled somewhat, and she's now hosting a morning keep fit show. Obviously, she's a woman of maturing years, but she's got this slot which is quite popular. And as this opening sequence wears on, we see this star that's been embedded in Hollywood Boulevard, and we see it get cracked, and we see people walking over it and people dropping things on it. And that is quite an interesting, if slightly obvious, depiction of her career and her star waning before we even get into where she is in the film. So we see her doing this keep fit routine for a morning TV show. It's her birthday on the day that we join her, and she's called in to see the boss of the network, who's played by Randy Quaid. His name's Harvey, a role incidentally which was going to be played by Ray Liotta, who passed away before the film could be shot. She's called into his office and she's basically told that she's too old. They want to get somebody new and vibrant and sexy to take over this particular show. She's obviously devastated. On the way home, she is distracted by seeing a billboard poster for her show being taken down, distracted so much that a lorry crashes into the side of the car. She ends up in hospital. Luckily, she doesn't suffer any significant injuries, but a nurse who's giving her the once-over before she's discharged sort of examines his spine and says, "Oh, you'd make an ideal candidate." And she notices he's got a strange discoloration on his arm. When she gets home, she discovers in the pocket of the big yellow coat that she wears pretty much throughout the film, when she required to wear a coat, she finds a flash drive with a telephone number on it. She puts the flash drive into a TV, and it gives her this publicity spiel about something called The Substance, which can change your life and rejuvenate you. She throws it in the bin and discards it, but she pulls it out a bit later on when she realises that the situation that she's now in, she's got no work, her career's come to an end. She wishes she could turn back the clock. The Substance, it appears, gives her the option for that. She rings, speaks to a slightly monosyllabic voice on the other end of the phone, which tells her to go to a certain place to collect the kit and equipment she will need to apply the substance It's in a rundown part of the town, wherever the town is. She gets this stuff back, uses it in the bathroom, and things all kick off. She not exactly gives birth, but she creates a young woman, a young version of herself, who obviously is young and vibrant and pert. Oh, she's very pert. Who takes her place. Now, the rules of the use of the substance are that the person who's used it, they have to swap places with their replacement every 7 days. During that 7-day period, the person who's sort of comatose is fed intravenously, but the person who is back living their life has to go back in 7 days, or there will be terrible consequences. The young girl calls herself Sue. She attends the audition for this new fitness campaign, and of course she sweeps everyone away and she gets the role, or gets the job. And that's where things sort of kick off, because Sue is suddenly massively successful. She's the big name of the moment, and she becomes a big star. She doesn't really want to give that up. And things start to go a bit wrong for Elizabeth and indeed Sue. I won't say any more, because that's where the second half of the film kicks in. It's an odd one, this, because halfway through the film, I was watching this and thinking, wow, this is really good. This is really unusual and striking, particularly because of the aesthetic that the film has, the way it's directed. It's set now, it's set in a big American city, but there's no identifiers. There's no signifiers of where we are, you know, what time zone we're in, what time period we're in. It's in its own little creative bubble, which is interesting. And the way it's shot, there's lots of really long shots, loads of extreme close-ups, which are particularly disconcerting in a restaurant scene where Randy Quaid is shoving shellfish and prawns and things into his mouth, and he leaves this horrible mess all over the table. For all the talk of the film being gross and unpleasant, that was the scene I found the most gross, to be honest. So it's set in this nowhere place, which gives it this slight feeling of dislocation. You can't really latch onto it a bit, because there's nothing that anchors it to the world that we know now, apart from the fact that there are people in it walking and talking, and it's set in a recognisable world as far as we're allowed to recognise it. But we can't say this is Los Angeles or this is New York or anywhere, because we don't really see much of the outside world. We see Elizabeth's apartment, we see various other little places, but there's nothing to sort of say this takes place here and now, which I think helps its sense of oddness. And it is a very odd film. As I said, during the first hour and after the first hour and a quarter, I thought, this is one of my films of the year. This is really good. It's a really interesting look at issues which we know a lot about. Body image, the exploitation of the female form, women being cast aside when they get older, and all that stuff is writ throughout this film. Not particularly subtly. I mean, it's there, it's in your face. That's what this film is about. And I think these are things, particularly with the way that the film is made, there's a lot of nudity, there's a lot of close-up nudity, there's a lot of scenes that if this was directed by a man would have been considered outrageous and exploitative. But it's directed by a woman, and it's dealing with these particular issues in not exactly an ironic way, but in a postmodern sort of way, as if to say, this is what it's like for women. And yeah, it makes that point, because it's not incredibly subtle. But I was thinking, yeah, this is a really strong, powerful film, particularly because Demi Moore's performance is fantastic. As I said, I've not really seen a lot of her work, but she is great in this. She really embodies this sense of frustration that she's cast aside just because she's getting older, and you know, she doesn't look particularly old. She looks good. Let me take it from me. And yeah, for about an hour and a quarter, I thought, this is a really good film. I'm really enjoying this. This is something special. But then it suddenly goes in a different direction, which suddenly made me think, oh, this is going wrong. And I could feel it going wrong in front of me as I was watching it. I could feel myself disliking it or turning against it, or suddenly thinking, oh, it's doing something I didn't want it to do. Now, I knew in advance that there was going to be gore and lots of body horror. And maybe I'm a strong stomach, but it didn't particularly bother me, because what we see in this film, particularly in the last 40 minutes, goes to extremes, where it becomes obvious that we're watching special effects, we're watching prosthetics, we're watching visual trickery. I mean, it's not CGI, to the film's credit, this is all practical stuff, but it becomes too much, it goes too far, and that then tore me away from the story and threw me into a cinematic world of excess. And it went so far that I ended up laughing at it. And when I went to see it, there weren't many people in the cinema. I think it was me and two others, and we were openly laughing by the end of the film, because you had to. There were one or two scenes, and again, I can't say what they are, because you will probably go and see this film, or you might be interested in seeing this film. There are strange creative choices that any sympathy you may have for these characters is just discarded, because you just want to laugh, not at them, but at the visuals, the way it looks and the things that happen. And sorry I can't go into more specifics, but if I did, you probably wouldn't believe me, to be honest. And in the end, I compared this film to Hereditary, which you may remember came out, 3 years ago? There may be a review on this channel. I can't remember if I was doing the channel at the time. That was said to be a new dimension in horror. You'll never think of horror films the same way again. And that was an interesting film for an hour, and then it went batshit crazy, and ended up laughing at it because it was nonsense. It betrayed the first half of the film. It's exactly what the substance does. It felt to me as if the director had walked away from the editing suite to have a cup of coffee, forgot to come back, somebody else came in and stuck the end of another film on, of some sort of video nasty or some very silly comedy horror film. That's how ludicrous I felt it went. And I'm so disappointed in that, because, as I said, for the first hour or so, I thought, this is really very good. This is weird in a good way. And I like this. This is going to be one of my films of the year. Now, I have seen some people argue that the point of the last half an hour of the film is to go into the absurdist realm and say, this is what we're talking about. The issue of beauty and what beauty is, and beauty is in the eye of the beholder. And what is beauty? What does a person see as their own beauty? What do other people see as beauty? I reject that. I reject that because, as I said, I think it betrays the important points, the relevant points, the intriguing points that the film is trying to make. And I think it's a shame that it's done that. And I just can't reconcile what people say the end of the film is to what the first half of the film is. And there are extremes earlier on in the film. There are extreme body things that happen. There's some extreme visuals. I say there weren't things that made me go, ugh, because I never react like that to these things. I always watch them, I think, with an eye of, oh, how they did that, or what's the effect there that they used. I don't get so involved in the visuals that they repel me or repulse me. I can just take it on the chin, basically. But no, I just think that last half an hour, you can argue it as much as you want. You can argue it till you're blue in the face. And ultimately, if you think it's doing certain things, if it delivered those things for you, that's fine. But I don't see it myself. I don't see how anybody can see the last 45 minutes of this film and not think it's ludicrous. Because it is. It's visually ludicrous. It's extreme. It's extraordinary. It's very visual. It's a vision that this director has had. But I just think it's a shame that she didn't rein it in and become a bit more moderate. I think that the extremes that happen to people in this film, if they hadn't been quite that extreme, the story would still have worked and wouldn't have lost the thrust of the first half of the story. That's what I thought. That's me. That's what I thought of it. And this is a film that you will probably take different things from. It is that sort of film. I don't think it's a film that you go in and come out with one particular view of. You may well feel the last bit is justified by the first. You may think that it's saying something. If it is saying something which I missed, I'd be very interested to know. If you've seen this film, if you're watching this review, you will have seen this film. Leave a comment down below if you watch me talking about it and think, no, you've missed this, you've missed that. It's my interpretation. And I think that it just threw an interesting story away for the sake of being sensational. I felt that Coralie Farjat felt that she had to go wild in the last act, and I don't think she needed to be honest. Otherwise, I will say I'm glad that this film is out there. I'm glad people are still making films like this, because it is interesting to see somebody with this vision and this voice who tells these extreme stories. But I think it's the issue of where the story ends and where the visuals take too much precedence, and you want to shock a bit more than you perhaps need to. And I didn't find it shocking. Otherwise, though, it's very well made. It is very well directed. It's got a very stark look to it. As I said, this dislocated feeling of I don't know where I am in the world. The soundtrack is interesting. It's by Rafferty. I'm sure he had a motor car. Anyway, it's this discordant sort of crashing electro music, sort of 80s thumping, disco, dancey sort of stuff in the background of the Keep Fit scenes, but it's discordant, and it's all part of the feeling that the film has to make you feel a little bit uncomfortable. I didn't feel uncomfortable, but I just felt a bit frustrated and a bit let down that the film had gone where it went, and I didn't think it needed to, personally. Other opinions, of course, are available. You may well have them. I'll be very interested to hear. Leave them down below, because this is a film that I think is going to polarize people. People will think it's a masterpiece, and other people will think it's frustrating, and I'm in that camp, unfortunately. As far as my rating for it is concerned, it was going to be a 9. It was a clear 9 in my head, and then it all drained away. So I'm going to give it a 5 out of 10. 5 out of 10 for The Substance, because I love the first half, and I didn't hate the second half, but I just felt it was too silly. Just too silly at the end of the day. It punctured what it was trying to do, which is a shame. Thank you for watching. Hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, like and subscribe. Press the subscribe button would be great, because subscribers are stuck again at the moment. It'd be nice to get them up before Christmas, or misses. So press the subscribe button. Like, subscribe, leave a comment. As far as the future of this channel is concerned, I just thought I would mention I'm going to be focusing a bit more, skewing more towards retro stuff, because that's the stuff that seems to get views and likes. I've noticed, looking at the analytics as much as I can make of them, it seems that reviews of new films don't get much interest. My review of Speak No Evil has yet to reach 50 views. And yet my Remembering David Graham video, which went up, has got about 700 views. So it's clearly people are interested in older stuff. I did think about changing the name of the channel to Paul's Retro World of Stuff. That's still a possibility, but at the moment I'm leaving it as it is. But so that you know, if you're watching this, there's going to be a lot more retro stuff. There's going to be retro film reviews, and looking at retro merchandise as it comes out, retro Doctor Who, much more than modern stuff. I still want to review modern films, but I won't be reviewing every film I see. I'll just be reviewing certain genre films, significant genre films. So that's the way the channel is going, because things have ground to a bit of a halt lately, and it would be nice to get things going again. Right, that's enough from me on this one. See you soon. Until I do, keep taking the stuff.